Hi, good morning once again everyone. We're going to chapter 13 of Sutta Discovery Volume 40, SG 40.13, Ananda Subha Sutta. And the reference is D10, right? So you notice Digha Nikayas tend to be long suttas. So again here the sutta is simply called Subha Sutta. So Subha is quite a popular name in the Buddha's time. So there's more than one Subha Sutta. So here we have tried to disambiguate it. We tried to make it unique by adding a prefix, Ananda, because here the teacher is Ananda and he's teaching the brahmin youth Subha. Okay? So if you tell people Subha Ananda Sutta, we can at once locate it, right? So if you say Subha, again we might ask which Subha Sutta you're talking about. Alternatively, you can remember the Sutta reference, which is D10, Digha Nikaya. And as you know, in the Digha, the suttas are very long. In a sense, the purpose of the suttas in the Digha Nikaya is to present the totality of Buddhism, what has Buddhism to offer. So this is one of the marks of early Buddhism as a missionary religion. The Buddha and the early monks, they were very wise, they were very brilliant in presenting the Dharma for the good of the many. So in the very first collection of the Sutta Pitaka, we have Digha Nikaya. Very long, impressive suttas, very encyclopedic, talking things from a comprehensive point of view. So today's sutta is like that. It's very comprehensive. You might kind of say that it is about the three trainings. Here you notice in the theme I just said three trainings. Of course, if you wanted it to be more elaborate, I've written on the board that you can see the true and complete Dharma training. Okay? In other words, if you truly become a monk or a nun, or even as a layperson, what sort of training do you need as a Buddhist? Right? So this is one way of looking at it. Okay? Of course, we adjust according to whether the trainee is a monk or a layperson. Again, here the word monk is very interesting. Although the Buddha is a monk, it is stated here and there, or at least the monks and scholars know this. It's just you're addressing the primary group, the oldest group. So it means monks and everyone present. It's not just monks. Although the Buddha may address monks or even a single word monk. The commentary, for example, say the word monk can refer to a meditator in the Satipatthana Sutta. In other cases, the word monks, especially in the plural, refers to everyone present, including the monks. Here, in other words, the Buddha does not want to be so formal. Like, for example, in some big political speech, you start listing all the VIPs and call them by name, so in the end, that's half the speech already. So the rest of them say monks, and then everyone else is listening, So here you have it's a dialogue between Ananda and Subha. Subha's father had already died here, and so he wants to see Ananda. Okay? Ananda, as you know, is a very popular monk. He's a very good PR person, right? So it's very popular. People talk to him. Even people want to meet the Buddha, will talk to the Buddha. So the structure of the sutta is very clear. You can easily notice it. The first part is on. First of all, we've got to familiarize ourselves with the three trainings. The first training is what's called Sila Sikha, training in moral virtue. Right? Here, moral virtue refers to training or disciplining of body and speech. Okay, if you like, social grooming. Right? How do the monks and the nuns, the renunciants, behave in such a way so that they are properly supported by the lay people without exploiting the lay people, and also without spoiling the lay people, the supporters. At the same time, creating a supportive environment for their practice, so that they don't have to worry about whether have I broken a rule or not, have I done something bad or not. Yeah? So the first training is to support, protect and nourish the Sangha, the community, so that it is those who want to renounce the world can find a suitable, even ideal place for training. The second training in the Pali word is Samadhi Sikha. Samadhi here can have a broad sense of meditation in general. More specifically, it refers to mental stillness. In fact, some scholars today they say it's better to translate as stillness. So I do use the translation sometimes. Or we can use the word samadhi. Okay, samadhi also is an English word now. You can find this word samadhi in the bigger dictionaries. So you can say training in samadhi if you like. Previously, the popular word is concentration, or mental concentration. I'm not too fussy about translations. The important thing is to be consistent and be clear. Right? So you can say training in mental concentration, training in mental stillness, training in samadhi. Here refers to basically, number one, learning to calm the mind, even if you're not a good meditator. Learning to calm the mind, understanding the nature of the mind. If you like, if you call Buddhist, if you call Sila Sikha as Buddhist ethics, then you can call Samadhi Sikha as Buddhist psychology, if you like. Here again, I'm not fussy about psychology. It simply means study of the mind. So here we can look at the second training as a study of the mind, but not only study, of course, improving the mind, freeing the mind. So here, what does it mean? If you can, we train ourselves in deeper meditation, getting to some levels of samadhi, mental focus, so that our minds are clear. Then we are stress-free, we can study suttas better, we can talk more clearly, we are more calm ourselves. I mean, you find today there are lots of people who can talk on the Dharma, on Buddhism for hours, but they probably themselves not changed. They're just like the way before, long ago. So, in other words, you need to transform yourself, change yourself to be a happier person, kinder person, more compassionate person. It's not how much we know, it is how changed, how happy, how wholesome we are. That really counts. Then, of course, if you further this meditation, you can attain jhanas, very deep, wonderful states, joyful states, right? So, and that is the basis for the highest awakening, arahathood. There's nothing beyond that. Once you become an arahat, then I have to stress this, that's the end of the journey. That is as good as attaining Buddhahood. So do not slander the Buddha by saying that arahats need to awaken to become Sammasambuddha. There's no such teaching in Pali Buddhism. These are very much later ideas by sectarian Buddhists. So arahathood is the end of the journey, it's becoming Buddha already. Whereas Buddhahood is like being a professor. You don't need everyone to be a professor. You just need one professor in a particular department. The rest are all graduates, they are lecturers, they are students. So this is a second training, mental training. And then the third training is that of wisdom, Panya Sikha. Here Panya is, you might say, translated as insight wisdom. Insight, that means sight into reality through the veneer of delusion. Okay? So this kind of wisdom frees the mind, frees us from suffering, in other words. Okay? So brings us to sainthood. So this is the third training. So these are the three trainings. So you find, if you look at the sutta, let's have an overview first. So from page 149 at the bottom, introduction, it goes on to the page 151 until 1.6.3. The early editors who edited the Pali in Roman letters, the Western editors, they didn't do a good job of the numbering, so with lots of decimal places here, so we have to make do. Anyways, up to 1.6. Then 1.7, or I've labeled as section A, the aggregate of noble virtue. So this is Sila Sikha, training in moral virtue. You can see it's quite long, right? Very long section, right up to page 159. Okay, so it's very good to just be aware. This is the map, alright? Syllabus. And then page 159, can you see section B there? The aggregate of noble mental concentration, or the new translation, the aggregate of noble samadhi. It starts 2.2, and then you go on. This is talks about meditation. You go on until page 166. 166. Alright? And then, okay, right. Can you see? Then the third section, C, the aggregate of noble wisdom, the W is missing. Page 166.
165.
Yours is 165. Okay, can you see section C?
Yes.
The wisdom W is missing, right?
No.
Huh? Yours, okay, yours corrected. Huh? All right. Big in the middle of the
Page 165.
See the aggregate of noble wisdom.
Okay.
Okay, this is the third training, 2.21 until the end.
This is all the sutta.
Same sutta until the end. Okay, so actually the end Subha goes for refuge. So that's kind of concludes the sutta. So this is overview. Okay. All right. Now that we have some mental idea of the journey we're going to take, let us begin. Okay. It's always good to have this kind of overview first, so you can, anytime you can stop, take a break, and then continue your study. So once again, you have this a bit of historical beginning, if you like. Right, we go back to the start, section 1. Thus have I heard, at one time the Venerable Ananda was staying in Anathapindika's park in Jeta's Grove, outside Savatthi, not long after the Blessed One had passed into final nirvana. So there you are. So here there are suttas which record events after the Buddha's passing. So this is one of them. Okay. So although we use the word Buddha word, we can still use that term to refer to Ananda's teaching. By this time, Ananda is already an arahat also, by the way. Okay, but this is after, assuming this is after the Buddhist council. If it's after Buddhist council, Ananda would have been an arahat. So the conversation begins, section 1.2. Then the brahmin Subha Todeya Putta. Putta means son of Todeya. Todeya is a very famous brahmin, his father's name. It's a bit like the Scots. The Scots, they have this word Mac something, so start off. So he addressed a certain boy, a servant boy. He says, "Come now, boy, approach the recluse Ānanda with this word of mine, asking after his health, that he has good health, mental ease, vigor, strength, and comfort." So basically, go and see this Venerable Ānanda and send him my regards. And then tell him if he can come over and visit Subha. So the boy goes. Okay, I'm summarizing this point. So the boy goes to see Ananda and said, "Bhante, can you please come? My master wants to meet you today." However, Ananda is not that well that day. Look at 1.4. When this was said, the Venerable Ananda said this to the boy: "It is not the right time, boy. Today I have taken or drunk some medicine. Perhaps tomorrow would be a good time for me to visit, if the time and occasion permit." Okay. According to the commentary, Ananda had taken some kind of medicine, kind of purgative, because he has been, soon after Buddha died, he was very busy, and so he's kind of overworked himself, so to speak. So he's taking a short break, a rest, and he's clearing his system, so to speak. So here's where we have Ananda didn't accept by his silence. He said, "Can I see you tomorrow?" Right? So notice what interesting things can we deduce from this short episode. There is this interesting connection between the laity and the monks. The monks do visit lay people, not so much for socializing. Whenever they visit, the monks visit the lay people, it's not to talk about the weather or talk about football or whatever. There is always some Dharma teaching. Here, Ananda visits Subha, the young brahmin, and you have this long sutta called the Subha Sutta for our benefit. And the topics about the 3 trainings. So Ananda visits him the next day, and then, of course, this young brahmin will offer alms to the Buddha. To Ananda, and then this conversation ensues. Look at 1.58. Okay, so Subha asked the Buddha, says, so he's kind of very curious. The Buddha has passed away, so he wants to know what the Buddha taught. There's no chance to meet the Buddha. His father probably met the Buddha. So he says, the Buddha has been teaching for so long, and you, Ananda, have been so close to him. You are the Buddha's personal attendant, and so on, right? So now is the question, okay? And the sutta answers this question. The question 1.5.8. You got that? What Master Ananda are the teachings that the Master Gotama speaks in praise of, and in what does he rouse, instill, or better word is convince, rouse, convince, and establish the people? That's the question. Okay? Then Ananda answers, the Blessed One, young Brahmin, Manava, okay, that's the word translates young Brahmin, speaks in praise of the 3 aggregates. Okay, here we are. In the suttas, the 3 trainings usually called the 3 aggregates because each training is an aggregate. It is a collection of things, right? For example, Silasika, you're training right action, right speech, right livelihood, and so on. Okay, and all the others, they are collections of practices and teachings. The 3 aggregates, you can also call it the 3 trainings. And it is here that he rouses, convinces, and establishes the people. In what 3? The aggregate of noble virtue, or Pali Arya Silakanda. The aggregate of noble samadhi, Arya Samadhi Kanda. The aggregate of noble wisdom, Arya Panya Kanda. Okay, so these are the 3 aggregates. Notice, Subha asked just one question, and the rest of the sutta is Ananda's answer. Alright? Okay, Subha asked something else. One more. Subha does interject. He does occasionally say something to highlight the point, so to speak. It's a very interesting way the teaching is presented, the style. It's like an Italian opera. You have this guy sitting in the main aria, and then this woman is occasionally interjecting, and that kind of gives a very nice balance to this opera aria. So the Subha says, but what Master Ananda is the aggregate of noble virtue that the Master Gotama speaks in praise of and rouses, convinces, and establishes people in, right? So here, something very interesting, because again we must notice the style of a Dharma preacher. Ananda he's not like a tape recorder. The moment someone asks a question and there you are, you press the button and this person go on rattling the Dharma non-stop. He says, okay, this is what the Buddha teaches, the 3 aggregates or the 3 trainings, and then maybe it's very calm, it's quiet for a while. And of course, Subha is curious. He says, okay, what's the first one? Okay? So Subha here also acts as a kind of narrator or commentator. And remember, this is an oral tradition, so we don't have like someone's going to flash across the screen the subtitle. You don't have that. You are listening, all you hear is voices of Pali and early suttas. So Subha acts a kind of a narrator or commentator. Okay? But of course, in our book here, because we are a scribal tradition, I have a wonderful privilege of giving you the subtitle. So I put A, so you know there's B and there is C, right? So A, the aggregate of noble moral virtue. And then I also put there what section to what section. You can compare this, because these huge chunks, they repeat. You notice this is D10, right? We are on page 151. Yeah? D number 10. You see, the first 13 suttas of the Digha Nikaya, Digha 1 to Digha 13, they have this standard section, very long section, called the Samanyapala. And the Samanyapala is another term for the 3 trainings in terms of practice. Samanya is the abstract noun for samana. Samana means recluse. So samanya means the state of a recluse or recluseship, the state of being a true monk. And then pala means fruit or fruition. Okay? So in other words, the 3 trainings, the purpose is to become a true recluse, to be awakened in this life. So all these first 13 sutras, I've got this part we are studying now, with slight variation. So there are variation on a theme. The theme is the 3 trainings. So you find this section we are going to study now also appearing in the second sutta, Samanyapala Sutta. Okay, so Ananda now answers that question. Section 1.7. Here, young Brahmin, there arises in the world the Tathagata, the Buddha does come, Arahat, fully self-awakened, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, well gone, knower of worlds, unexcelled trainer of tameable people, teachers of gods and humans, awakened, blessed. So this are all respect to the teacher. It's a sort of, they're not titles, they describe the nature of the Buddha. Then you find in later religions, similarly, a string of titles will follow the holy name. Right? So you find this in Buddhism too, long before the tradition was used. Then, so here this first part is to impress on us that the Buddha is present in the world. Or even if we say was present, but still within living memory. For example, we are 2,500 years after the Buddha's time, but we can still remember his teachings. So effectively, we would say this is still the dispensation of Gotama Buddha. Okay? So in other words, we should not be worshipping other Buddhas, past Buddhas or future Buddhas, but just the present Buddha will do. Of course, in our piety, we often say, we want to show respect to all the Buddhas. But frankly, they don't need our worship. What they advise us is our practice, that is a supreme worship. So, if we are to respect Sakyamuni Buddha, Gotama Buddha, the practice his teachings, then you are also respecting all the Buddhas. So we don't have to be ostentatious about it by saying, here are the 7 past Buddhas, and then now we got the countless Buddhas as many as the sand on the Ganges River. So then you have big numbers, but we don't really practice, right? So we are going to suffer from a very serious spiritual inflation. Because if you treat the Buddhas as numerous as the Ganges sand, and you don't have compassion, you don't have practice, you don't have wisdom, then that kind of idea is just like sand. Whereas if you just have one Buddha, you practice his teaching, you're compassionate, you're wise, you're liberated, then you have that one beautiful diamond. One Buddha is enough. And moreover, there can be only one Buddha in any world system. So we don't have to worry about other world systems. Keep our home in order. If we keep your home in order, it doesn't matter how big our neighbor's house is. Big house, bigger problems. But our small little house is more cozy. It is easier to upkeep. It's easier to practice, right? Because your real home is your mind. So that is a supreme worship. The 3 trainings, practicing the 3 trainings, is what this sutta is about. So the Buddha is available, and he has He's fully awakened, so this 1.7.2, right? And then 1.7.3, he teaches the Dharma. It's not only awakened, he spreads the Dharma. He shares it with other people. Why does the sutta make a big deal of this? Why is this stated? Because religious people before the Buddha's time, up to the Buddha's time, do not generally go out and tell people, hey, I found the truth. They are very secretive about it, especially the Brahmins. The Brahmins will never teach what they know to others because this is a family secret. Okay, you come to us, and this is the charge. You got to give so many goats, so many cows, so many this and that. You make donations, right? So it's a kind of like currency. But with the Buddha and the reform recluses, they say, no, we teach freely because we're talking about universal liberation. It's a bit like in politics, you have universal suffrage. Everyone can vote, something like that. Not just men, or worse, there's certain classes of men. We talk about democracy starting in Greece. Actually, those early democracy is not the kind of democracy we know today. Only certain people in Greece could vote. They are the rich and powerful. The poor cannot. The slaves definitely have no voice, and nor the women, right? So these are things you need to know too. But the idea started there, of course. So the Buddha has risen in the world, is fully awakened, and is also presents the Dharma freely. 1.7.5. Here the statement goes, the household life is stifling, a dusty path. The life of renunciation is like the open air. It is not easy living in a house to fully practice the holy life in all its purity, like a polished conch shell. What if I were to shave off my hair and beard, put on the saffron robe, and go forth from the house, whole life into homelessness? So here, in other words, we have a choice. We can stay home and practice, or if we have the opportunity, take the ideal path, that is renunciation. In other words, this path is still possible even today. Often enough, I will get emails, people are coming to talk to me, even attending classes like this. They quietly come to me and say, I'm planning to become a monk. But usually in Asia they will say, when my parents die or when my mother dies, I'm going to renounce the world. So I'm preparing myself. I want to study suttas. And I even get emails from overseas. People say, where's the best place that you recommend? I can be a monk, So I'll tell them certain places where I feel they will get good training. And one thing they always tell me, I'm very happy to hear this, is they want to study suttas. Not any suttas, but the early suttas. Because it goes very well with becoming a monk. So I feel very happy to be a part of this drive, this desire for people to renounce the world in the true spirit of Dharma. And it is based on this teaching right here we have just read. So they leave home and then they wear the robe and then they practice the Dharma with real determination. Notice what is said here. I need to read this because it's very important. 1.7.6. Then after some time he abandons all his pile of wealth, little or great, and circle of relatives, small or great, shaves off his hair and beard, puts on the saffron robes, and goes forth from the household life into homelessness. When he has thus gone forth, he lives restrained by the rules of the monastic code, Patimokkha, possessed of proper conduct and resort. He behaves properly, and he also goes to places which are proper. He doesn't go anywhere, and also at the right time. Having taken up the rules of training, he trains himself in them, seeing danger in the slightest fault. He comes to be accompanied in wholesome bodily and verbal deeds. His livelihood is purified, and is possessed of moral virtue. Right? So this is the first training. And then the kind of elaboration there. He guards his sense doors is accomplished in mindfulness, full awareness, and is content. Okay, so this kind of gives an overview of the nature of a monk. The sense doors, especially the physical sense doors, that's the first training, another way of looking at it. Sila, Sikha, training in moral virtue, deals with the disciplining of the 5 physical senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. Second training deals with the 6th sense, the mind. Okay, and the third training deals with beyond. Okay, one more important point here. Some people may say, oh, people who renounce the world, they leave home, they give up their parents, right? So some people like the Confucianists might say, oh, that's unfilial, isn't it? And so on, right? Now, living the home life, according to some folklore experts, it's like the hero leaving home. This is the motive of the return journey. The hero is to leave home. Why? For various reasons, okay, depending on the story. Maybe there's some danger to the kingdom, some enemies have taken over, some bad dragons have done some damage to the country maybe, or maybe this prince is unjustly driven out. There could be many reasons. So the hero leaves and he goes to a journey and he discovers himself, discovers lots of things. So this living home, that's renunciation for a monk. So he leaves home, meaning he leaves his old self, he leaves behind a failure. Then he discovers the truth, he discovers himself. And then he comes back and liberates the kingdom, frees the people, and he sort of comes back and claims his rightful place again, so to speak. So this is very similar. You see, the Buddha leaves home, he has to give up his biological family, a small family. He goes away, he becomes Buddha, he discovers the secret of life, if you like, the nature of suffering, and he's totally liberated. So he's no more that young prince. He's no more an Indian, so to speak. He's not even human. Right? Someone asked him, are you a man? He said, no. What he's saying is, there's nothing to classify him now. You cannot classify a Buddhist, a Buddha, as a human. He's transhuman, beyond the human. He was human, yes, but now he is beyond, a saint, awakened. Okay? So he comes back. In other words, when he comes back, he now becomes open to everyone. Everyone is part of his family. So you find, for example, in the suttas, very often you have the word Buddha Orasa or Buddha Rasa. Right? The chest-born one of the Buddha, the bosom-born one of the Buddha. Very interesting here, the suttas never say born from the womb of the Buddha, because that's kind of sexist, feminist, born of the bosom of the Buddha. And that's a very beautiful word for a child also. Buddha child, son of the Buddha. Okay? Here again, it refers to anyone who practices the Dharma, Dharma heir, in other words. So in other words, the Buddha leaves home, he leaves behind the biological family. He awakens, now he has started a spiritual family where anyone from any class or no class can join. So it's like the Buddha is everyone's father. Anyone can approach him, and everyone does. It's just like today. You find today, if we have problems, we normally wouldn't consult our parents. I mean, if you're teenagers or older people, normally you wouldn't consult your parents. You rather go and see a counselor. And very often this counselor may be a monk or a nun. So we feel comfortable talking to them because we know, number one, they would not lie. Number two, they're very wise. They are unbiased, right? So we feel very comfortable talking to them, and we know they will help us in a very effective way, not just through counseling, but also through meditation, through this ancient wisdom, which is very old, and they know their stuff very well. So renunciation is not just giving up a family, it's rather giving up a small family for a universal family.
Yeah, what do you mean by his livelihood is glorified?
That means the monastic's livelihood is purified means he does not get engaged in the world for benefit, for worldly benefit. He does not treat the Dharma as currency, as a thing by which to gain worldly benefit as in worldly livelihood, like a business.
He has no livelihood?
His livelihood is that of practicing the precepts. That is by which he lives. Why do we support the monks and the nuns? Why do we offer them food, robes, shelter, medicine in a proper way? That is, I'm not talking about career monks and professional monks who have their own property, family, and so on. I'm talking about the true renunciants. We support them because they are economically insecure. By definition, a renunciant is economically insecure. He doesn't know when the next bowl of rice will come from, and it doesn't bother him. Number two, he is also professionally insecure, but he is emotionally secure, spiritually secure. So when we offer alms, when we support the monastic, it is because we know they are not socially engaged, they are not professionally engaged, they practice for their awakening if they are not yet awakened, and if they are awakened, then we benefit from that connection. So their livelihood is a spiritual livelihood because of their moral virtue, because of their mental stillness, and because of their spiritual wisdom. Okay, so now the sutta starts with the first training, moral virtue, and this section is very famous. It records some of the oldest rules, we might even say the oldest rules we have of the monks. This is called the silas, S-I-L-A-S, it become an English word already. Here there are three sections. Okay, the first section, can you see the word there, the short section on moral virtue? Alright? And then next page, can you see the medium section in the middle of the page? Can you see? And then you go next page, the great section. Okay? Right? Can you see that? Okay. So you have three parts here. The first part is the rules are given very briefly. In the second part, expand on them. Third part, give a longer list. Okay? So let's look at the short one first. 1.9. And how young Brahmin is among accomplishing moral virtue. Here, young Brahmin, having abandoned the destruction of life, among abstains from destroying life. He dwells with rod and weapon laid down, conscientious, merciful, compassionate, for the welfare of all living beings. Okay, so if you look at the first three rules, they're underlined for you. So he gives up this destruction of life. Number two, he avoids the taking of what is not given. Number three, he abandoned incelibacy. In other words, he is totally celibate. And then, so here you have the precept, and then you also have the virtue, the positive practice. Having stopped killing, he shows compassion. Having stopped taking the not given, he practices generosity, he only takes what is proper, and so on. And then number three, having abandoned incelibacy, he lives apart, he does not get involved in any kind of sexuality, right? So this is the precept linked with the body. And then the next section, right speech. Alright, so here I've labeled it for you. So again here we have the keywords. These are very familiar terms, so I'll just look at the highlighted, underlined words. He avoids false speech. This part is very beautiful. Let me read to you just the rest of the section. He abstains from false speech. He speaks the truth, keeps to the truth as is born, trustworthy, reliable, no deceiver of the world. Right? So in other words, there's no white lie here. You know, sometimes you find Buddhists, they can be even Dharma speakers, but sometimes just for the sake of diplomacy or the situation is very difficult, so they can simply just say something which is not the truth. It's not easy sometimes, right? So whereas the Buddha is very skillful. He probably won't answer for example. And there are conventions that allow that. But somehow we have missed the convention because we have placed ethnic Buddhism above spiritual Buddhism. And once you do that, then you are judged and controlled by ethnic values, not by spiritual values. So if you are defined and moderated by spiritual values, then you find you don't have to answer certain things because it's not proper, you will hurt people and you are respected for that. So this is something we have to consider. What kind of Buddhism do we want? An ethnic, race-based Buddhism or a more open, universal, spiritual Dharma? There are many advantages for a spiritual Dharma. It opens us up to the whole world with so much brilliance and genius that we can use to spread the Dharma to others and help society. Otherwise, we are left with a very parochial, very small, race-based kind of culture. Remember, culture prevents us from growing, but cultivation of the Dharma helps us to grow. Okay? Once we say your culture, that means you are limited in the way you talk, the way you behave, and in the things you should do or should not do. It's race-based somehow. Okay? But if you're cultivated, it's different. You're more sensitive to people, you're more open to people, then you become a citizen of the world, so to speak. Then he gives up divisive speech, he doesn't divide people up, he unifies people. Number 3, he avoids abusive speech, he speaks gently. Here, gently doesn't mean weak. The Buddha is known to speak quite strongly too. When the monks are very noisy, he will tell the monks, "Monks, why are you so noisy? This is like a fish market, you know." So he doesn't kind of like he doesn't glare at them. He probably he have a slight less smile than usual. He will say, "This sounds like a fish market, you know." And people already quite say, "Wow, you know, the Buddha is trying to tell us something." So he can be quite firm when the monks are not disciplined. And then, bracket 7, he gives up idle chatter. In fact, you're going to see a long list of things he will say the monks should not talk about. And then, there are other rules. The monks abstain from damaging seeds and plants. This rule is very important because India, Buddha's time, is agricultural. So the monks, they go in big groups, so they walk about, say, the fields where plants are growing, plants will die. So they have to observe these rules.
These are monastic rules?
Monastic rules, yes, for the monks and nuns. Okay, now section, brackets 9 onwards, 1.11. So further down, Samanera Sikha, rules for the novices. These are for the monks also. He eats only once a day, abstaining from evening meal and food from proper times. The reason for this moderation, so that he can practice well and also don't burden the laity. 10, he abstains from dancing, singing, music, and from watching shows. Right? Now this was very important because if you do this, you get distracted. Okay? 11, he abstains from wearing garlands and from beautifying himself with scents and makeup. Number 12, he abstains from high luxurious beds and seats. These are the way the nobles and the powerful live. So the idea is that a monk is supposed to live a simple life, so he's accessible to everyone. 13, he abstains from accepting gold and silver or simply money. So a monk has nothing to do with money. He doesn't have even a simple cash card. Of course, these are very tricky things nowadays, especially if a monk lives and works in the urban area. So I find some monks are still struggling with this problem here, especially if they are working in the urbanized situation, whether to use money or not to use money. However, just to highlight the problem, I find it very troubling where you find a forest monk or someone who claims not to touch money, but on the quiet they accept donations, they even raise funds and things like that. I think it would be better if they are very clear to make a statement, a Sangha statement, saying, okay, these are the things that the monk can or cannot do. Maybe, okay, because of this environment, a monk maybe is allowed to use what I call this ATM card, this easy link, for delivering on the train, things like that. The Sangha is to speak out and limit the usage. But the problem is the Sangha is not united enough to do this today. So, but this can be done within the monastery or within a particular tradition. It can be done. Otherwise, it can be very schizophrenic. Here's a monk saying he doesn't touch money, but here he is accepting donation, asking for money. So, of course, most people don't bother about this. Once they like a monk, that's it, the monk can do anything and it's right. But those who know the Dharma, those who practice, they have their concern. They do feel concerned. And if you want to have quality, these concerns must be addressed. If not, then the next generation will degenerate much more. You have no more generation, you have degeneration. More and more degeneration, generation after generation. That won't be good. And then comes the Dharma ending age. Okay? So, we have to address this problem of monks and money. Yeah? And 14, okay, these are the worldly activities a monastic should avoid. 14, he avoids accepting uncooked grain, raw meat, women and girls as slaves, by the way, male and female slaves, goats and sheep, fowl and pigs, elephants, cattle, horses and mares. It's obvious, right? Once you have this kind of things, you have to take care of them. Whereas a monk is meant to be mobile and available to the people for Dharma. 15, he abandons accepting fields and lands or generally property. So you notice, monks don't own anything. Even where all these monasteries are concerned, they are kept up by lay people. So the monks just stay there. If the monks don't behave themselves, then they get chased out. They can't stay there anymore. So the worldly property are managed by lay people. And the monks give spiritual guidance. He abstains from running errands, running messages, or running errands, in other words. He abstains from buying and selling. There you are, right? So he is dealing with money again. He abstains from dealing with false scales, false metals, and false measures. So we know in the Buddha's time there are such problems. He abstains from bribery, deception, and fraud. He abstains from wounding, executing, imprisoning, highway robbery, plunder, and violence. Now this is very interesting because these last few rules, you find when Buddhism reached China, Korea, Japan, the monks stopped obeying this. In Japan, for example, you have warrior monks called Shohei. Right? So it became very complicated there. Right? Of course, there are historical exigencies there, you've got to study the social context, but that doesn't make it right. Okay? So these are things which have to discuss at the proper levels. Then the next section, medium section on moral virtue, gives the more details for these rules. For example, look at 1.12, the rule about not damaging seeds and plants. There's a list. It says, can you see the word such as these? Plants propagated from roots, stems, and joints, budding, and seeds, right? So we know here they have a good idea how plants are propagated, right? This reminds me of my science class when I was in Sec 4. Right? Then 113, the monk avoids using stored up goods, and then the list is given. For example, stored up drinks, stored up food, stored up clothing, vehicles, bedding, seeds, meat, right? So the monk does not store these things. So if you stay in a retreat center where the monks live, you find generally they don't keep these things. However, in places where a retreat center also have laymen living there, then the kitchen may have stored up things. In other words, the kitchen belongs to the lay people. And it's very interesting, I was living in one of these retreat centers. A monk will come along when he's hungry, he'll just kind of stand in the refectory. And then the lay people are there. Then he'll say, Bhante, what can I do for you? What drink would you like? Then the monk will say, okay, I want Milo. Okay, the Milo can is on the shelf, but he won't touch it. So the lay people will prepare it for him. In other words, it doesn't belong to him. Okay? So you tell a lay person, this for me. This is one way to circumvent breaking the rules. Of course, some people argue against. I say, oh, this is so dependent on lay people. But well, you've got to do the best, Because if you say, oh, you can do anything you like, then there's no end to it. So at least the lay people becomes the moderator. So if there are no lay people, then the monks are going to the forest. Okay? So where they don't exert themselves so much, then they don't need to drink Milo. I mean, you won't see a monk carrying those packets of 3-in-1 Milo and Horlicks, and he goes into the forest, starts a fire, boil water, and makes his drink. He doesn't do that, okay? So he just drinks plain water. So this is the life of a monastic.
It was near stored up. I just don't get it.
Stored up, that means you keep in a monastery. You store it up in a cupboard, and then when you want, you use it. You see, once they do that,
So
then...
you say they cannot keep things at this.
Right.
I said it means living on stored food.
Correct. You see, when you store food, vermin come, right? There are problems with pests and so on, and killing will be involved. That's one. Number two, then you have attachment to what you have, and you start worrying about this thing. You can't meditate. See? So I mean, after all, we're talking about renunciants, Okay, so that's the meaning. So strictly speaking, the monks would not store things for themselves. Like I said, however, we find the monasteries are big nowadays, and there are lay people living there. So the kitchen is a complete charge of the lay people. So in other words, it belongs to them. So the monk will ask lay people whatever they need. The temple people who live there will take care of them, serve them. So they don't own those stored up things. It doesn't belong to them. Now, of course, in a sense, these are ideal states. You see, you might find certain so-called modern monasteries actually storing stuff, but that's their own decision to ban or break the rules. There are lots of monks today, you might say, they break the rules more than keep it. So, well, we don't have to follow them, And the more we speak up, the more we say, no, this is not what we want, then you find in next generation there will be less and less career monks, professional monks. Hopefully that will be the case. Or at least we have a choice to practice the Dharma as the Buddha taught us.
Yeah, what is the cultural context at that time of storing things? I'm just trying to get my way around this.
The storing things simply means not to, hot things that you get caught up with it, you can't move around, because the life of a monk is like that of a bird. All he has is his 2 wings to fly. The only burden are the wings. So these wings are, of course, meditation, if you like. So a monk lives a simple life. All that he needs is just his wisdom and his compassion. So he doesn't store things that will burden him. Okay, then the third section, the medium section, goes on expanding all these things, like watching shows. And the list is given. What kind of shows? Look at 1.14. Dancing shows, singing, music, plays, ballad recitation, any kind of show, okay? And then 115, games. It doesn't play games, and the list of games are given. So now we know. This is a very good insight into social history of ancient India. 8-row chess. So we know there's this 8-row chess in Buddha's time. 10-row chess. Our chess are 8 rows, right? So then you have 10-row chess. And living off given. So chess in the air, hopscotch, some of the things I don't know what they are, spillikins, dice, stick games, hand pictures, ball games, any kind of games, including cricket, by the way, because in Sri Lanka the monks do play cricket, and in Myanmar they watch football and so on. In Thailand they do Thai boxing, okay, so including these things, by the way. And then 116, these monks, notice what the line says, whereas some recluses and brahmins living off food given in faith are bent on high and luxurious furnishings, such as these. So these are what to be avoided. Oversized couches adorned with carved animals, long-haired coverlets. So all these are, luxurious kinds of furniture. So you go to a monastery, you find it's very simple, right? Some monasteries you go to, some in the cities you find they are so far covered with fur and all these things. And so these are definitely worldly priests. You can't even call them monks anymore. 117 again elaborates the rule regarding cosmetics, perfumes and means of beautification. So these are the things a monk wouldn't use. Rubbing hands into the body, massaging with oils, bathing with perfume water, using mirrors. You probably will never see a mirror in a monastery, right? Because monks don't need to comb their hair anyway. And then something to darken the eyelashes, mascara, bracelets, headbands, swords, all kinds of things, ornaments. So one doesn't use this, including expensive watches also, by the way. And then 118, the monk has given up low chatter, animal chatter, talks about kings, robbers, ministers, armies, in other words, gossips, or light talk. 119, debating. Okay? The monk who doesn't debate. For example, he doesn't say, you do not understand this Dharma and Vinaya, I understand this Dharma and Vinaya. What would you understand? How can you understand this? I know better, you're wrong, and so on. In other words, here the idea is to sort out any difficulties in a very calm and friendly way. And there are suttas which tell the monks how to do this. 120, the monk is not supposed to run errands. Messages for kings, ministers, warriors, householders and youths, right? Because that's not what they are meant for. So in a sense, we have to be very careful. Let's say a monk comes, visits us from Australia. We have to be very careful when we say, can you please tell monk A, can you please tell monk B in Australia such and such? So normally we won't do that, okay? But there is a way out, by the way. For example, you can say, Bhante, if it's okay, do you have a kapiya with you? Can you tell the kapiya to do this, okay? So he tells the kapiya, okay, then the kapiya will do it on our behalf. That's different, okay? So in other words, do not insubordinate the monk. Do not, because let's say if he forgets or he gives a wrong message, then we're going to have a negative attitude towards him. And we might be angry with him. And in so doing, we cut off our Dharma roots with this. In other words, we have a negative attitude that learning ability is gone. That's the reason, okay? And then 1.21, a monk gives up deceitful pretensions, but for example, using flattery, subtle insinuation or hinting, pressuring, pursuing gains with gain, right? So these are things the monk must not do.
I think you missed out line.
Where?
Because at the end of every sub-paragraph, you will have he abstains from.
Yes, I
119.
Yeah, I've summarized everything.
In 119, you have missed out the last line. I think in 119.
Yeah, the last line repeat themselves throughout, right? So these two is part of the moral virtue. So just saying that all these are part of, these are the details. So I'm giving a summary. Otherwise it will take many days to finish this sutta. So I'm just giving you the key points.
Well, the word again is not. It's not stated there. It's not written there.
Where? Which one? What number is it?
119, 120.
119, 120.
Yeah, because 119.
What about it? What's missing?
At the end of before the sentence, this too is part of his moral virtue. You would have the line, he abstains from. He abstains from. Right?
Yes.
So 119 you have missed it, 121 you have missed it. Because if you don't have he abstains from, then you cannot say this too is part of the moral virtue.
Yes. Okay. So
119 he abstains from what?
119 to 120, yeah?
119 and 121.
120 is okay, yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Only two sub-errors.
Oh, you make a very good proofreader, huh?
Lawyer lah, ex-lawyer,
Now we need proofreaders, okay? The mistakes are my mistakes. Things do happen, but sometimes the passage is correct. I'll check. I'll go back and check. Thank you very much. We need proofreaders, checkers of this.
So I guess you just check back on us.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you very much. See, even in the Buddha's time, they do it by reciting. So the monks will recite and people will listen. And there's a prompter, he sits nearby, looks, and there's a text there, and then we will prompt the reciter when it makes a mistake. Okay, let's go on to the third section. The great section, it goes into even greater detail. For example, wrong livelihood. Look at 1.22. Wrong livelihood gives you a long list. Alright, let me just read a few. Reading marks on the limbs, like palmistry, soul reading. Reading omens and signs, interpreting celestial events like lightning, falling stars, interpreting dreams. Right? In other words, feng shui and all these things, the monk does not practice. And 1.23, using gems, lucky gems, unlucky gems, people will look lucky or unlucky, and so on. About fortune. 1.24, he avoids wrong livelihood. Here your example. Forecasting, the leaders will march forth. In other words, there will be a war or no war, or people will attack or not attack in terms of when there's some political problem going on. In 1.25, he does not forecast things like lunar eclipses, solar eclipses. The reason is because he will draw the wrong kind of attention. Okay? In 1.26, he won't be forecasting when there will be a famine, drought, and so on. So, making all these forecasts are not the task of a monk. 1.27, here again, there's a long list of all these kind of arts. Calculating auspicious dates, making spells, worshipping the sun, things like that. Okay? All these are very popular things, and this is wrong livelihood. Okay? And 1.28 is a long list of wrong livelihood, practicing demonology, teaching house protection spells, inducing virility and impotence, all this, again, long list of things which a monk should not do. And then a new section starts, confidence through practicing the above morality. So here, the Ananda says, according to Buddha, just as a head anointed noble Kshatriya Raja who has defeated his enemies sees no danger anywhere from his enemies, in the same way the monk, accomplished in moral virtue, sees no danger owing to the restraint to moral virtue. So in other words, when he keeps all the precepts defined, he feels safe and happy. So that he doesn't have to worry about breaking the precepts, he can meditate well. So this is the first part. So Ananda says, okay, this is the first part. Look at 1.30. This young brahmin is the noble aggregate of noble virtue that the Buddha, the Blessed One, speaks in praise of and rouses, and convinces and establishes the people in. But here, young brahmin, there is still something to be done. Okay, this line is very famous. There is still something to be done. In other words, just being morally virtuous is not enough. Just keeping the precepts only the beginning. And then Subha interjects. Subha exalts. He says, wonderful it is, Master Gotama. This aggregate of noble... Master Ananda. This aggregate of noble moral virtue is fully complete, not incomplete. And Master Ananda, I do not see such a fully complete noble aggregate of moral virtue in the recluses and brahmins outside of this community. Now this is a great compliment coming from a young brahmin. He says, wow, the Buddha's teaching is, even we talk about morality, it's so complete. I don't see this anywhere else. And Master Ananda, if these recluses and brahmins outside this community were to see such an aggregate of noble moral conduct, they would say, enough done it is to this extent. Our goal of recluseship has been attained. There's nothing more to be done. But the Master Ananda says thus. But here, there is still something to be done. So he's amazed. He said, wow. In other cases, people say, it is enough, you just practice these rules. So in other words, the other groups, some of the wanderers and ascetics, they just keep these rules, that's all. And they get support from the lay people, right? No teaching of wisdom, no teaching of meditation. So Subha is very amazed. He says, wow, but in the Buddha's teaching, you say, they will say this complete, but you still say there's something more to be done. The Ananda goes on to talk about mental training now, 2.2.
Yeah, sorry, what is this meant? But Master Ananda, I do not see such a fully complete noble aggregate of moral virtue in the recluses and brahmins outside the Muslim community. What does that mean? It
means in other systems, non-Buddhist systems, they don't have such a... to them, the moral virtue is enough. They stop there. They say, that's it. But here, Subha says, although this moral virtue is complete, yet Ananda still say there is something more. Get it? For other systems, this is sufficient already. This is sufficient. But yet Ananda says this is only the basis.
I think it should be that other recluse and brahmins, their moral virtue is not as complete as what taught by the Buddha. Isn't it?
Which line are you referring to? Which line?
1.32.2.
Okay.
To me, Subha is saying, he's saying that the recluses and brahmins outside of this community do not even have this moral virtue.
Yeah. Correct. Yes.
I'm turning it the other way around.
Yeah.
He's saying, Subha is saying, the other recluses and brahmins don't even have this moral virtue.
Yeah, correct.
Is that what it means?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
I do not see such a fully complete noble aggregate.
So it's not present in the other communities.
Yeah. Or even if they do have moral virtue, they stop there. They say that's it. Okay?
Correct.
Okay, good. Okay, let's go on. Now, second part, samadhi, noble samadhi. So Ananda says, alright, once you have trained yourself in moral virtue, the purpose is to train your mind. How do we do that? 2.2. So here now, Subha asks, what about the second part, right? So how do you practice this? So Ananda replies, here, young Brahmin, when a monk sees a form with the eye, he grasps neither its sign nor its detail. Okay, this is the practice of sense restraint. So in other words, a monk is mindful, he does not, the moment he sees something, his mind quickly goes in that direction. Okay? He will restrain his eye faculty. So he does not jump at the first sign of something pleasant or unpleasant. And this applies to seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking also. So he keeps up this restraint of the moral senses. Okay? Is the summary clear enough, or any other question? Alright, then next one is mindfulness and full awareness, 2.3. Further down, 2.3. And what is mindfulness and full awareness? While going forward or backward, he is clearly aware of what he is doing. When he's looking forward or back, bending or stretching, I'm reading just the keywords. Bending or stretching, carrying his upper robe, outer robe, and bowl, eating, drinking, chewing, even in the toilet, okay? Avoiding, peeing, he's mindful. In other words, he's present. He's watching what he's doing. While walking, while standing, while sitting, while asleep, while awake, while talking, or while remaining silent. Right? But there's a bit of problem with sleeping. How do you become mindful when you're sleeping? There are two interpretations here. The simpler one is a monk sleeps mindfully. So when he's lying down, make sure his posture is right, covers himself, he lives in the closed room also, so the public will not notice. And his mind also is peaceful, so he sleeps mindfully. Another interpretation is a monk is a meditator. He's able to review. He wakes up and reviews how did he sleep, and he knows. So if he's not mindful, then he will mindfully tell himself, I'm going to be more mindful next time. So these are two interpretations. and then we come nearer to meditation. Next session is contentment.
How do you not grasp the sign or detail of any of the senses? Can you explain what is
Okay,
what is it in
sure.
English?
Sign and details.
Yeah, what is
Okay.
that?
It's very good to remember these two words. There is one essay on this. It's called Nimitta Vyanjana. It's written in the footnotes. Yeah, Nimitta Vyanjana. You can read up. It is SD 19.14. The details are there. The main point is this. Let's say you're walking along the road, and then suddenly the first thing you see is a familiar face. Familiar here meaning someone you didn't like. Okay, and that is the sign. Now, if you turn and look, say, "Oh, this is the guy, and I hate this guy." Once you say, "I hate this guy," and then the memory starts flooding in, then the details have come in. So here, you nip it in the bud. It's a very wonderful way of psychological counseling also, you know. In other words, you tell people who easily get upset, the moment you notice the first sign, turn away. That's the training. The moment you notice the first inkling, turn away. Don't feed it. Then it will explode into it proliferate into 1,000 thoughts. That's the basic idea.
Okay, that is towards something, that's aversion. How about attachment and neutral?
Pleasant thing, same. For example, you go shopping, all those bright lights at the shopping center, then you see something really nice, a new phone, a new whatever, you know. And when you look at it, you say, "Oh, I don't need that," you know. So you don't continue looking. Because you go on looking, there's a lot of advertisement there and stuff, and so there's always someone there telling you why you should buy it, you know. And then you end up buying it when you don't need it. So in other words, immediately turn away. Remember, this training is for a meditator or when you really do not want to be dealing with all these excess input.
Likes or dislikes?
Yeah. When we do go shopping, of course, we bandy the bed, we look at it, say, "Oh, okay, let me look at this, how is it?" But still, we are very mindful. You won't jump into buying everything within your sight or what you think you like. The idea is, for us, is moderation. But if you are doing meditation, you've got to be a bit more careful. Because you're doing your walking meditation, you're doing your breathing meditation, so you're not going to get distracted by a thought coming in, you see. So it's more clear when you do. Remember, this is for mental training.
So we're to go through 24 hours trying not to like or dislike a thing?
If you're doing on retreat, yes. If you're on retreat, you're doing meditation.
Or we're not on retreat, because this is mental training.
Yeah, of course, if you're not on retreat, you're a layperson, you try your best, then you practice more of mindfulness, you may make mistakes, then you reflect. You say, "Okay, how did I do today? Okay, I was not mindful here," then you correct yourself. It's not like, for lay people especially, it's not like you should be strictly practicing all these things, we can't do this, but we try our best to be more mindful. Okay? Okay, now come this very beautiful part on contentment. How is a monk content? Look at 2.4, 2.5 actually. Here, just as a bird, wherever it goes, flies with its wings as its only burden, so too he is content with ropes to protect his body, and with arms to sustain his belly. And wherever he goes, he takes only these with him. Notice, only these, only rope and bow. That's why when the monks wander, it's called with ropes and bow. Okay, that's all his property. And then nearer to meditation, he overcomes the mental hindrances. So here, how does he meditate? 262. He resorts to a secluded dwelling, a forest, the foot of a tree, a mountain, a gully or gorge, a hillside cave, a cemetery, a remote forest or jungle grove, the open air, a heap of straw. And then he goes to meditation. Why? To give up covetousness. Covetousness is a blanket term for sensual desire. And then brackets 2, he abandons ill will and anger. That's the second hindrance. It's a pair. The third is a pair also, sloth and torpor. He gives up sloth and torpor. 4, he gives up restlessness and remorse. 5, he gives up spiritual doubt. So he trains to abandon the 5 mental hindrances. And once he's able to do that, then jhana arises. Now the next section, 2.8 to 2.13, you find there are parables there. Comparison of the various hindrances, which I won't go into. Okay, you can read them for yourself. Then 2.14 is very useful. 2.14 gives you some tips on how to make your meditation work. The keyword is be happy. Okay? This is where it comes from, 2.14. Seeing that these mental hindrances have been abandoned within him, he becomes glad, happy. Okay? For one who is glad, zest arises. Zest is what they call skillful interest. No? In other words, sorry? Joyful interest. Joyful interest. For one whose mind is zestful, the body becomes tranquil, the body becomes comfortable. One tranquil in body becomes happy. For one who is happy, the mind concentrates, or the mind becomes still. Okay? So this is like a summary of the whole process of overcoming hindrances before jhana sets in. That's the next section. First jhana is listed, the traditional formula. And here you find in this formula you have the five jhana factors. Right? He attains the first jhana, accompanied by initial application. That's the first factor. And sustained application, second factor. And with zest, third factor. And joy, fourth factor. Born of solitude, that's the fifth factor. Here is some level of samadhi, okay? Mental oneness. Then in this, again, there follows a parable, which I won't go into, okay, comparison. Then second jhana, you have one factor less, and that missing factor, or rather two factors, initial application and second. So in the second factor, zest is missing. Notice, isn't it?
No.
Sorry.
From initial application
Yeah.
and sustained application.
Where are we?
216.
Page 1, this is 4, 6.
Okay, notice underline 216. Furthermore, young brahmin, with the stilling of initial application and sustained application. Got it? That means normal, initial application, sustained application. These are the remnants of thinking. So they're totally gone. Okay? So this is the second jhana. Then the third jhana further down, 217, with the fading away of zest. Notice? That means even zest is a kind of exuberant joy. So the joy becomes more peaceful now. This is the third jhana. And then the fourth jhana, even happiness as we know it is no more there. Because it's so peaceful now, there is only equanimity. So that's the fourth jhana. Alright? And then it ends there. The section ends there on the noble samadhi. Ananda says 218.5. 218.5. Ananda says, this young brahmin is the aggregate of noble mental concentration or noble samadhi that the Blessed One speaks in praise of and rouses, convinces and establishes the people in.
Which line, please?
Now I'm going to 218.6. 218.6.
218.6.
But-
There's 18.6. There's no 6.
Okay, sorry. Can you see? But here, young brahmin, there is still something to be done.
Which one is that?
Can you see the line? Okay, go back to the line. This young brahmin is the aggregate of noble mental concentration that the Blessed One speaks of in praise of. My page is 218.15. I don't know if you have it.
No, we don't have 8. We stop at 18.4.
Oh, okay.
There's no 18,
Further down, what's your next section?
219.
219 is Subha.
Oh, okay. I think this section is missing. Yeah? So anyway, Ananda says, okay, this is session on mental training, and but there's still something more to be done. Okay, so just make a note there, right? Anyway, please email me. You want the revised one, updated one? After study, we normally update it.
You put on the website.
Yeah, we will send it to you, or you can download from our website. So again, Subha is impressed. He says, "Wow, this aggregate or noble samadhi is really complete. Not incomplete, but if you look at other systems, they don't have such a complete system. Right? But even if they do, then they just stuck with it. They don't go further. And yet, Ananda says that there is still something more to be done. Okay, now Ananda comes to the last part. He says, the last part is wisdom. So here, look at 2.21. With the mind thus concentrated or stilled, purified and bright, unblemished and free from defect, pliant, malleable, steady and utterly unshakable, he directs and inclines it to knowledge and vision thus. This body of mine is formed, composed of the four elements, born from mother and father. So in other words, he understands the nature of the body is made of form and it is impermanent. And it reflects on the true nature of the body. Right? It's like a reflection on the five aggregates here. And then the next section, he sees the mind-made body. So here we're talking about a monk who is deep in meditation and comes out of it. Okay? 223, he's able to see that he's able to project himself astrally, mind-made body. Can you see the highlighted word there? This is the kind of body that can move around different places. Okay, this is what the text talk about in meditation. This is something I've not experienced personally, and something we just say is mentioned in the text. Okay. Then, using this knowledge, he gains what are called the three knowledges. Okay, can you see the last section, page? My page is 168. Knowledge, can you see the heading knowledge of the modes of supernormal power? 167, is it? Okay, 167. Knowledge of the modes of supernormal power. Now this sutta lists 6 powers. Okay. Yeah. Number 1 is called psychic powers. Got it? Can you see number 1, brackets 1,
Yes.
2.25?
Yeah.
Okay, now I have to summarize here, okay? So here, these are the various kinds of psychic abilities, appearing, disappearing, and so on, okay? So because of the person attaining 4th jhana, he has all these abilities. And the comparison is 2.26. It's like a skilled potter or his assistant is able to make pots. You can craft any pot you want, or an ivory maker, ivory carver, or a goldsmith is able to make all kinds of ornaments. And then power number 2 is clairaudience, divine ear, is able to hear sounds which are in the distance, even very far away, like a traveler on the highway can hear all kind of musical sounds. 228, you got it?
Yeah.
Okay, so here, because of the deep concentration, his hearing becomes very developed. Next, further down, number 3, 229, he's able to read minds of others. In fact, you don't have to have psychic powers to do this. Even if you're a regular meditation teacher, you more or less know the student's mind. And the Buddha says, even if you are not able to read minds of others, you should read your own at least. So notice here, the teaching here talks about knowing the mind, whether it's concentrated or not concentrated and so on. It's not fortune telling. It's knowing the mind so that you can help them in their meditation. And then next is it's a long one here. Okay, so lots of repetition, don't worry. Lots of parables, comparison. Number 5.
Knowledge of the recollection of past life.
Okay, yes, number 4. What's the number? Number is missing, huh? Oh, okay. It's not highlighted. No? It should be highlighted. Oh, okay. Nice, the whole copy. So this is knowledge of his own past lives, able to recall his past lives. That's knowledge number 4. And knowledge number 5. And what number is it?
5.
I know the 2.33. Okay. So this is called the divine eye. That means this person is able to see the lives of others, how they pass away and they're reborn according to karma. So knowledge number 4 confirms karma. Knowledge number 5 confirms rebirth.
Sorry, knowledge of 4 confirms rebirth.
The knowledge number 4, we know our own past lives, that confirms rebirth. And then knowledge of other people's, how they rise and fall, could be the karma. So rebirth and karma. And then comes the most important of all. This is the one that brings awakening, knowledge number 6. The knowledge of the destruction of the mental influxes, 2.36. Yeah. So this is where we truly understand all those things that bring us suffering, what comes through our senses, and the Arahant is 3 of them. So here is defined in this way, 236.2. His mind, thus knowing, thus seeing, is released from the influx of sensual desire, the influx of existence, and the influx of ignorance. So whatever comes to the senses that makes this person to be caught up with the world, to continue to want to live in samsara and not to know what's going on, ignorance is all overcome. And then finally, Ananda says, there is nothing further beyond this. Notice this, finally, no? So this is the unique statement here. This is 2.36.2, just before 2.37, above 2. Can you see 2 lines above 2.37? There is nothing further beyond this. Yeah, it's Ananda speaking. And then finally Ananda says, this young Brahmin is the aggregate of noble wisdom that the Blessed One speaks in praise of and rouses, convinces and establishes. Got it? Okay, so now finally Subha says, wonderful, sadhu. He says, finally everything is complete, and then it takes refuge. Okay? Excellent Master Gotama. Excellent Master Gotama. Sorry, Ananda. Looks like I'm tuned to Gotama every time. No? Excellent Master Ananda. Excellent Master Ananda. Notice in whom he takes refuge. Just as if Master Ananda, one were to place upright what has been overturned, or were to reveal what was hidden, or were to show the way to one who was lost, or were to hold up a lamp in the dark so that those with eyes could see forms, in the same way, in numerous ways, the Dharma has been declared by Master Ananda. I, Master Ananda, go to the Blessed One for refuge, to the Dharma and to the community of monks. May the Master Ananda remember me as a layman who has gone forth to him for refuge from this day forth for life. So here we go for refuge only to one person, that's the Buddha, the historical Buddha, and the person before whom we take refuge is the witness nonetheless. Okay? So the sutta ends there. Sadhu. Now this is from the Digha Nikaya, remember? It's a very long sutta. Yes. Well, we made it in time. Any questions? Any quick questions? Okay, so I'm very happy we finished the sutta. So we won't have the last two suttas are quite short. Huh? Okay, let us close this section with a short reflection. Today we have done a classic sutta from the Digha Nikaya, which shows the very complete presentation of the Buddha's teaching. So we have long suttas, short suttas. For people who want a very comprehensive approach, this is one example. The Dharma is very complete. We don't need fantastic stories and various other diversions. The purpose is to train our body and speech so that our minds become calm and clear. And all this will bring us liberating wisdom. This is the three trainings. This is the true practice of supreme worship. Reflecting this way is wonderful good karma, by the power of such karma. May we attain peace and success in this life itself in a happy way. By all the various good deeds we have done and are doing, our practice of the precepts, our keeping to our practice of meditation, to our generosity and many other good deeds. May we attain the spiritual attainment of stream winning or aspire to stream winning in this life itself. In this moment of peace, let us send out our loving kindness to all the beings here, that they may be well and happy, keep this place peaceful. And all the people who come here and work here, may they too be well and happy, blessed with health and wisdom. And to all the people we care for, and may you all too be well and happy. And all those whom the Dharma have not touched, that they may see the Dharma and be happy for themselves. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.